Hey everybody, Hammer Time here. For a while I've been wanting to start a series over BBR. Um, I'm more wanting to speak to players who haven't played the game or new to the game or have been playing for a while but haven't had the time to get a lot of games in. And so I'm wanting to start a series to try to help those players become better players. I've met a lot of guys through the BBR tournaments and the new BBR league that we're playing. Become good friends with them, and I really like to teach the game and my knowledge. So I wanted to do a series. I've been asking some guys what they see in players that they need to learn, and other players who are new what they want to learn. So I'm going to do a series over BBR to some of it will be broad, some of it will be specific. But in my first video, somebody had brought to my attention maybe to kind of do an introduction to BBR. Not really an introduction, sorry. I mean more like a why choose BBR over G40. I know there's other variants like Grasshopper. I played that a few times, maybe 6 times, and I've only been playing Axis and Allies maybe 2 years now, 2.5 years. So all of it's been BBR except for maybe 5 or 6 games in Grasshopper. So my videos, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be bashing one side or the other here. That's definitely not what my intention is. I'm a BBR player. BBR is what I know, what I'm good at. I know Grasshopper and Sireblood. Shout out to him for BBR. He's the one that created this variant, and through his good friends and in the game that play tested it and all that, they came up with a very good, and they continue to make new upgrades and changes to the game. Same with Grasshopper. Like I said, I've only been in Axis and Allies a couple years, so I don't know the time frame or the history, but I know Sireblood and Grasshopper kind of both did their games kind of maybe around the same time. No connection to each other, but they did it for the same reason, to make a G40 out-of-box game playable in one day and be able to determine a winner. So I'm not gonna be sitting here trying to do BBR versus Grasshopper. They're both great games, but they're both very, very different. So out of box, I've played that maybe twice ever. When I got into BBR, I live here in St. Louis, and I met a guy who I became really good friends with, Greg, known as Wojtek, sorry. And he brought me straight into BBR. So what I know about out of box is the victory conditions, like in Europe. You got to have all the cities. Same with over here in the Pacific. And again, I'm not here to bash the founder, the creator of Global 40 either, because we wouldn't have BBR or Grasshopper or any other house rule variant out there if we didn't have G40 out of box. A great mind, a great man created that game, and I can't sit here and bash it at all, or else we wouldn't have any of this. We wouldn't have BBR. So I'm not here either to try to bash Global 40. It's kind of like back in the day. If you're my age, I'm mid-40s, 46. Am I 46? Heck, who knows, man. That shows you how old I am, that I don't even know my age. So there you go. I'm 45 or 46, but whatever. Anyways, it's like back in the day, man. We started out with beepers, man. When you wanted to get a hold of someone or send someone a message, you were able to text the numbers upside down or sideways, to say hello or whatever. And that's kind of like how I view out-of-box G40 as is the beeper. Great, great invention. Started the whole cellular age. But, is the iPhone, what are we at now? I don't even know, because I do Samsung. But what's the iPhone at? 12? iPhone 14 now or something? I don't even know. But, it's like BBR is like the iPhone 12 now, the Apple 12 or whatever it is, compared to the beeper. So it's not to say that whoever created the beeper or G40 is bad or did it wrong or whatever. It's just that was the beginning, and everything we have today, BBR, came from G40, just like the cell phones from the beepers. So the pagers. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I definitely don't bash anything, because nothing would be made better if it wasn't for the initial creation itself. So, like in G40, let's just take, for example, for you guys, I'm kind of talking to you guys, this is kind of a recruitment to BBR. In G40, you got the big American fleet out here. In rounds 3 or 4, that'll maybe come in. They're sitting in Hawaii or maybe sitting here in the Carolines, okay? And your Japanese fleet is floating around the coastline somewhere. And all you got to do, like I said, I don't know G40 out-of-box rules 100%, okay? But let's say the whole main fleet of America is sitting here in Carolines. All you got to do is put a couple destroyers out here, and one destroyer will block a fleet of 20. So again, I'm not bashing, because we wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for G40. All I'm saying is BBR and every rule we have in BBR has made G40 just so much more realistic and better to play. Because here in BBR, this one destroyer here in C-Zone 34 can't stop an American fleet of 20 or 25 ships from coming in. It would only stop, one surface warship only stops 3. So America could come in here with a few planes and a few ships, 3 surface warships, attack this destroyer, and as long as that combat was successful, the rest of the American fleet could move on in their 3 spaces wherever they wanted. They could move on in to where they wanted to go. And that's, and that's realistic. That's one thing. And all this, everything's coming from my mind, so I just speak how I see things. I like BBR because, compared to out-of-box, because number one, it's 8 rounds, and you can play it in a day, 12 hours max, mostly around 10 when you play against players who have played it before. You can get a game done in 10 hours, and it's great. And you always know a winner in BBR. Out-of-box, man, you got to go 10, 12 rounds. You've played 12, 14 hours. Started at 8:30 in the morning. It's now 10:30 at night. Everybody's tired. They're grouchy. And I just hear all the time people argue in their play groups or friends at home or whatever. Be like, who won the game? And one side will say, well, I can do this and I can do that. And I could do that there, and over here I could do, well, it's been 14 hours. I mean, you couldn't do that already in 14 hours? And then you have bad blood between each other, and you never really, each side thinks they won. And, BBR is 8 rounds, man. 8 rounds, and you have a winner. And there's a lot of things I love about BBR, man. So I'm trying to talk to you guys who play Global 40 and maybe getting tired of it or want to jump into something new. you really, really need to try BBR. It's an 8-round game, and you have victory cities, victory points. Some of them are cities like Moscow, Stalingrad, Leningrad. Other things are a combination of things, like a victory point for the Axis is here in the Mediterranean. You either have to own Gibraltar, you have to own 3 of the 4, which is Gibraltar, southern France, Greece, and Cairo. If you own 3 out of those 4, you also have to make sure in the Med that none of the islands are Allied controlled. Like Malta right now is Allied controlled. It has a fighter, AA, and an infantry. So the Axis would have to come in here and take that over. So at the end of the 8 rounds, if the Axis has 3 of the 4, let's just say they don't have Gibraltar. Let's say the Allies have it. They have southern France, they have Greece, they have Cairo, and they control the Mediterranean, which means they took over Cyprus and they took over Malta. And as long as the other 3 islands are not controlled by the Allies, that's another victory point. So if you have 12 victory points, at the end of the 8 rounds, when the game is over, that's an Axis victory in this game. It's as simple as that. But the victory points, which I will get into all that specific stuff, each country play and all that, rules, things like that for new players and players that have played for a while but want to just get better. I'll be getting into all that. This is just an introductory video. So that's BBR, and so that's the main thing I love about BBR is you can get done with it in 10 hours, have a definite winner, one side or the other. But the other things I like about BBR is all the different rules and the different technology and all the different stuff that is in BBR. It really makes it lifelike, like the war. I mean, I know this is just a game. I'm not one of those guys that can compare a game to a war like that with all the atrocities and bloodshed and all of that. But it is kind of nice to play a game that is really similar to a war. Like, for an example, in BBR, round 1, and I'll get into this. This is the type of thing I'll get into with new players to try some new stuff. But I'm getting off subject. But so let's say this tactical in round 1, I take from Western Germany from an air base. I can go 1, 2, 3, right, into C-Zone 93. And I can bring 3 tacticals in, okay, against the French fleet. Now in BBR, tacticals have what's called a target select, kind of like the dive bombers, where they able to dive in. The Americans, you see the movies, they're coming in out of the sky on top of a certain aircraft carrier or a battleship. They picked the ship they want out of the fleet, out of the enemy fleet, and they get to go right at it. Well, that's target select with the tacticals in this game. So I'm taking 3 tactical bombers, and I'm going to target select 2 of them on the cruiser and 1 of them on the destroyer. So I would roll 3 3s, because when they're unpaired and it's a target select, I get to roll 2 3s here. If I get a hit, this cruiser is automatically gone. They don't get to fire back because there's no AA here, which is battleships. And let's say I roll this tactical and I hit another 3, and this destroyer's gone. They don't get to fire back. Well, that's kind of like the war. I mean, yeah, they have AA in the war and they're firing at the ships, but guess what? That's a lot of the battleships that have them heavy AA fire. Well, there's no battleship here. If I was to try that up here in the C-Zone 110, there's a UK battleship there. Guess what? I don't get the target select with my tacticals because the battleship's there. So, rail system in this game, any minor or major factory on the board, you can rail. Let's just take Berlin. Berlin has a value of 5 in BBR 5. So I can rail 5 units, any units I choose, not planes, but I could rail 5 infantry, 1, 2, 3, all the way into Belarus, as long as I owned all 3 of those territories at the beginning of my turn. I could rail those during non-combat to get these infantry from Berlin to Belarus in one non-combat in round 2, let's say, well, I wouldn't have it by then. Let's say round 4. And this is the aspect of the game that you're able to get it done in 8 rounds because of stuff like this. To rail infantry to move 3 spaces in one non-combat move is just excellent. And it's like it's like the war. The Germans railed everybody to the Eastern Front into Poland. Then they got it turned around, put them back on trains, and ran them over to the west so they could do the invasion. Then once they got done there, they put them back on the trains and railed them all the way back over to the Eastern Front here in Poland to do Barbarossa. And that was done all over the map. So that's another aspect of the game compared to out of box. This BBR really gets the game going quick. Another example, bombers. In BBR, strategic bombers can transport 2 infantry. Of course, when you do technology and you get heavy bombers, they can be a tank or artillery and an infantry. But for this sake, we're just going to go with a regular strategic bomber. As long as you have 2 infantry that at the start of your turn, I could load 2 infantry out of Berlin in round 1 during my non-combat and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and drop them down here in Tobruk. It's an air transport, and that's just like the war. You can also drop the 2 infantry. Let's say I wouldn't do it, but I'm just, for an example, round 1, I could pick up 2 infantry and drop them in combat into Paris when I go in. So that's another aspect of the game that makes it more fun and gets the game going quicker. It doesn't take 3 rounds to get infantry, like in out of box, to get infantry from Berlin to Belarus. It take this round, then this round, then the next round. So it takes 3 rounds to get them here before you can even use them in battle. In BBR, it takes 1 round. You either airdrop them in combat or non-com, or you rail them. So it really just gets the game going quickly. It opens up this map to do a whole number of different things because of the rail system and the air transport. And that's just the tip of the iceberg on what this game has. Like I said, battleships have AA. In defense, the cruisers will be up. It will defend at a 4 when it's paired to a battleship. So it's, if you play out of box G40, or you're thinking about getting into Axis and Allies, but you don't, the only thing you really know or have heard about is Global 40, you really need to look into BBR. I know it can be intimidating with the different rules and all that, but the premise is the same as G40 and out of box. You just have to learn each unit and their capability and the other house rules that are in this game. But I'm telling you, BBR is just leaps and bounds. I mean, it is. It's the Apple 12 compared to the pager, to the beeper back in the day. I mean, it's not saying that the pager was bad or the beeper was bad, whatever you want to know it is. Some people called it a beeper, some was a pager. It was a good invention. It started it all. But do you want to have the Apple 12 or do you want to have the pager or beeper? And BBR is the iPhone 12. It is just, it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's like the real war. When it comes to aspects, like I just gave just a few of the many examples that I could have given. Just like with the in the real war, like I said, there's no way, there was no destroyer, even the great UK fleet, there was no one destroyer that could stop an armada of ships. It took forces, a combination of ships to do that. So if you wanted to stop an American fleet of 20, it would take a task force of 7, just like in the real war. It would take 7 ships to be able to throw it off or make 20 ships divert somewhere else. Not just one, like in Out of Box. One destroyer cannot stop battleships and aircraft carriers and cruisers and destroyers, 20, 25 of them. It's just, and that's just another example of how BBR is compared to Out of Box. So I just wanted to start this one video just to try to convert some Out of Box players. Don't be intimidated. It's a great game. I came into it and knew nothing, and I'm still learning it after 20 years, but it's a really great game. It's not slow. With all these different rules and rule sets that are lifelike, it really gets the game going quickly. It really opens up different strategies that you can come up with compared to what you do Out of Box, and you have a definite winner. So this really is not what my video series is about, but I will open the series up with that. I don't know how many videos it's going to take, but I will get into a whole number of different things just to try to get new players and players who are in BBR that don't have the time. I understand a lot of people are married, have family or work or whatever. They don't get to play as much as other people. And so experience is the name of the game to learn in this game. You can watch anybody's videos or read a book or whatever, but you really don't learn BBR unless you really learn it through experience and just by watching someone's video for 15 minutes over Italy's strategy. Once one thing goes wrong or goes different, or you play against somebody else who does a different defense, well, there goes that strategy, and now what are you going to do? So it's all about experience. But I'm going to get into all that too. Somebody had brought up, a player had brought up that their certain problem is they start out fine and they know what they want to do, and they begin rounds 1 and 2, but then all of a sudden, maybe in rounds 2 or 3, things start going not as planned. Well, how do I rebound? How do I divert? What do I do so I can continue getting my victory points and not just turtle and have the other side come in on me and now the game's out of control and there's nothing I can do? Well, I'll get into that. I'll do a video on that, but that's what my series is going to be about. And some of it will be technical and specific. I'll give a lot of examples on different things, but I kind of want to show, like, okay, I'll give you an example. I see a lot of players. Since I've been in this game for 2 years, I've never seen. Everybody wants to go hit the UK fleets, okay, and take the tanks here into Paris. Well, I see it all the time. 99% of the time, that's what everybody does. So I just want to start. I've come up with some other stuff, and I'll be showing specific stuff sometimes, like these tacticals here. Why? And I'll get into reason why, but why hit both fleets? Okay? I don't ever hit the fleet anymore. I think something that Germany can do using the BBR rules of target select, I think one thing that Germany can do to help Italy out here in the Med, and they need a lot of help here in the Med against UK, I think one thing to do is bring 3 tacticals down here to C-Zone 93 and target select these 2 French ships. And then they land in Rome. So when Italy comes around, after UK's done their thing, they'll take out these 2 ships. I know there's a few things that they could do, and I'll get into that, but normally this fleet will back up into here in C-Zone 81, okay? So when Italy starts the game, they'll have their fleet here and here, and the whole Med will have no allied ships. So Italy 1 is starting their turn with their +5 NO bonus already for the Med being clear. They don't have to use their ships or their air force to come over here and take out France, okay? So they got part of their fleet over here and then the other part over here or down here or wherever they go. You've just exposed your fleet into 2 fleets for the UK, who has all the air force sitting around Africa and London, to come in here and just deplete your fleet. And everybody knows when your fleet's gone, as Italy, early in the game, that is bad news. So I'll get into stuff like this, like the tank things that I had just mentioned going into Paris. I don't take tanks anymore into Paris. Don't need them. And I'll show you how without the Air Force. Your tanks can now get right over here to the Eastern Front and start in on Russia. So I'm going to show things like that, opening moves, different tactics, other stuff, psychological. Trust me, guys. There's a lot of psychology in this game. Within your own self and with your opponent. And I will definitely be getting into psychology a little bit because I see players who are all about the dice. I mean, whether they're great or whether they're piss poor. Anybody that knows me, especially at like St. Louis tournament, you know what? I don't even roll dice at that tournament. My teammate does. And I don't really care what happens. I'll either go out, I'll go on to the next country and start thinking about that, or I'll be outside drinking my coffee and smoking, talking to the other smokers, and I'll come back in and ask Greg, hey, what happened? And I'll just take a look to see what the outcome was. I don't care about dice. Other players will get intimidated by other players. Other players get intimidated when the Allies have a big fleet over here or over here with America. When America's building up in Hawaii, and just in rounds 2 or 3, I'll see players be like all worried about what's going on there, and they've lost total track on what they should be doing over here. And so I'll get into all that, both psychology and what to do when that fleet's sitting there and what you should be accomplishing here before you start worrying about that. I'm not saying don't ever worry about that. I'm just saying, well, I'll get into all that. So I don't do notes, so I'll go off track. I'm just prepping you guys for my videos. I don't do notes. And a couple people had mentioned, make sure you do, good note taking so you don't miss anything. Well, I thought about it, and guess what? I don't do notes in the game. I never do, and I never will. And I'm not bashing those that do notes. So how do I put this without somebody getting upset at me who does notes? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Okay. Prime example. I'm just using a lot from experience. Somebody had notes on, a new guy had notes on what to do with Japan. And Russia went all in there. Well, usually people take their Russia troops back to Buryatia for one round. All of a sudden, the Japanese guy's like, wait a minute, I don't have this game plan in here for all 18 infantry being in a MUR. Should I go ahead and hit that? And he's sitting there for 5-10 minutes going through his notes and trying to see what he can still accomplish with his notes while also going after the 18 infantry that's in a MUR so he could just get rid of them right away. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, you can't play this game. So that's a psychological thing. How can you play this game? This game is fluid. Okay, every player plays differently, and some players play way differently than others. So you have to be ready for everything. And if you do notes, play by play, for your first 2 or 3 turns, you got to get away from that. And I mean, I'm just going to be honest, because you need to train yourself. You need to train your brain. You need to trust in yourself that you are open to deal with anything that any opponent throws your way. And this is speaking to the newer players and the one that's been in the game for a while but is still hasn't reached a very good level or is trying to reach that level. So I'll get into all that too, but that's one thing about notes is, I know that's a very basic example, but guess what? I saw it a few months ago, and it's like, wow. I mean, just one little minor detail like that throws your whole game off. I mean, so get away from the notes. Don't do it no more. Just throw it away and start trusting in yourself, and you have to be fluid in this game. Note taking, you're just going to drive yourself crazy if you're trying to plan out your moves. So anyways, I'm way off track. Guess what? That's because I don't do notes. This is just all tip of the iceberg of everything I'm going to get into, but this is just kind of it was a good idea to try to speak to these out-of-box players, these G40 players. Come join BBR, man. Sireblood made a great game. He had help from his good friends and to play test this. They continue every year to we're at BBR 5 now, the 5th edition. So they continue to try to tweak this game to make it as perfect as possible. It is great. It starts out quick. You have numerous opportunities to come up with your own personal strategies. And I'll get into all that. Breaking the psychology of doing the same thing. Everybody wants to hit C-Zone 111, 110, Paris, and do all this other stuff. And I'll get into all that, man. But you get 8 rounds. In out of box, it's hard to figure out a winner. You're playing all day and night. Come join BBR. We have a BBR league now. It's a smaller league, but once we get it working properly and we fine-tune it and get more players into it, I mean, already we have, 6, 11, 40, 50, 16, 17 or 18 players in Kansas City, St. Louis, and Chicago area. A few up in Wisconsin. But it's going great now, man. Get to meet new players, play new players, and it'll continue to grow. So we're trying to grow BBR. There's a lot of players out there that play BBR and join the tournaments. But trying to get you guys who play G40 and out of box to step over to BBR. And that's the other great thing. It just popped in my mind. The reason why I love BBR also and why it's more like the war is because in BBR, all the victory points that you have to hold, you have to have 12 victory points as the axis at the end of the 8th round to win. And that's like real life, like the war. In wars, you don't get to go just take over, as Germany, go take over Leningrad and be like, oh, we got Leningrad, so let's pull everything out and use all them troops for something else to go get another point. No, not in BBR. in order to get the point for Leningrad, you have to go to Leningrad, take Leningrad, and then at the end of the 8th round, when the game is over, you have to hold Leningrad, and then you get the point. So there's opportunities for the Axis to go around here and pick up points, and then the Allies, which everybody knows in Out of Box and in BBR, the first 3 or 4 rounds, it's all about the Axis breaking out and doing their thing, and it takes rounds 5 and 6, 7, and 8 for the Axis or the Allies to catch up and try to break the points. So it really makes for a great 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds where you got big battles going on all around the board with the Allies and the trying to break these points, and the Axis are defending them. So that's why I like BBR 2, is because you have to hold the points to the end of the game, just like in a real war. In World War II, you had to break Germany. You had to actually get into Berlin and get a block away, like the Russians did, for Hitler to put a bullet in his head to end the war. You know, you just had to do it. You couldn't just go in there, you know, and take the Rhineland or whatever, and then all of a sudden pull out, and Germany was gonna, you know, quit the war. So that's why I like BBR 2, is you have to hold these points, so you're fighting over them all game long. It's just not like a kamikaze where you can come in and nab something and then retreat everything, and you get to keep that point for the whole game. So there's a lot of stuff in BBR. So, man, this is a long video just for introductory. But anyways, don't let this first video bore you too much. My future videos will be more specific on certain topics, and I'm really aiming for the players who haven't played BBR, who have just started BBR, or who have played for a while and just need some help. And that's what my intention on these videos is to get these players to be able to compete against good players in these tournaments and in regular games, so they can figure out how to actually win a game against players that have been playing for years and years and decades, and who have a lot of time to play and learn it through experience. So that's what my goal is, and I will start putting out videos about that. So anyways, hope you guys are all out there getting into some games, because experience counts. And if you're not, try to. And get on over here to BBR. We're all open. We all love getting new players in. We'll teach you. Reach out to us. We got plenty of tournaments, players in almost in every city. So we'd love to have you. All right, guys. Be safe out there. Hammer time out.